Yo, it is the Weird, Fat, and Sober podcast. I'm here in my purple overalls, joined by my two homies, the longest running guests, Parker and Marcus. What's up, dudes?
What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Dan?
We got a few things to talk about. Last time y'all were here, we talked about you guys opening the Cove Recovery Solutions, your sober living. How far into it are you guys?
9 months, right?
Yeah.
We just decided something. We started really in January of this year, and it's been going steady since then. Some changes coming up. Nothing too crazy. It's exciting stuff, but.
If you had to guess, how many clients do you think you've had go through there since opening in the first 9 months?
Well, and so that number is going to be a little different because I have all the records from before we bought it mixed into where we are now. But I don't know, probably I'm
trying to think of
maybe 15, 20.
Okay.
20.
That's awesome.
We had 9, 10 over at mine.
Yeah, something like. I mean, the file that I have that has everybody total for the entirety of since I've been doing it since before we bought it is somewhere close to 50.
Okay.
And so it was in operation for about a year before.
I forgot that you actually bought it from 12 Step Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
which at that point it was only one house with 5 beds.
Right.
Then when we took it over, we implemented the second house and added another 5 beds. So we're at 10 bed capacity right now.
Right.
Currently, so that's I don't know. There was some guys that stayed for a while, and we rotate through every once in a while with a couple of every once in a while you get one that only stays for a little while because of whatever reason, but
right.
Then they move along.
So how has it been for both of you being on the opposite end of it? Because I mean, we all met in sober living. It was something that we did, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys think it's essential. I think it's essential to long-term recovery. Like, I think it's just a basic way to keep yourself accountable and fucking just like have that base to grow off of. You know what I mean? But how has it been on the other side of it? And like, what are some of the like best and worst experiences that y'all have had running a sober living?
Well, I think for me, like, it is good holding me accountable. It is good, seeing these guys every day, asking them how they're doing. But after doing it a while, I realized like that's what I was using as like my recovery.
Right.
And I had to realize, and after talking to my sponsor and Marcus and some guys, like I had to realize like that's not my recovery.
Right.
This is what I do. This is my job, and I can't put all of my eggs in that basket for me to stay sober.
Right.
So I had to readjust some of my thinking, and there was times I was. I'd ask a client, be like, hey, man, have you done your nightly? And then I hadn't done mine.
Yeah.
So then I had to get back to where I am doing what I'm supposed to do for me, and I keep that separate from the house.
Yeah.
And I do not get those mixed up anymore of, like, this is my job, this isn't my recovery.
Right.
I think that's really my biggest and it really wasn't that big because I caught it early on. I think that was like kind of my biggest battle since we started this.
Right.
But yeah, it's been great. Marcus had been doing this a little bit before me, so I got to, I think we talked about this last time, I got to learn a lot from him, and learning from him is good because he learned by trial and error.
Right.
He didn't do this at another sober living where he had a boss telling him how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, at 12 Step Warrior, it was really just you. And because the owner was really just mostly like an investor. I mean, he wasn't really around, right?
Right, yeah. He didn't live here in Lubbock. He lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and he wasn't in recovery. He worked in some sort of home health care before with, I think, people with disabilities and things like that. But he was never in this area of focus, right? So he knew a little bit about home or group living and things like that, but he never really knew what it took to keep people sober. Whenever you have like old folks or people with disabilities, there's another layer of accountability, which is usually the nursing staff or something like that between himself and the clients. Well, this time that layer wasn't there. And so whenever he'd never had a client until I came out there.
Right.
And then so I went out December of 2018, because of some financial stuff in my life that my brother had gotten into a position where he needed, my family had gotten into a position where they needed, you know, some help or whatever. And I wanted to be able to get myself out of the apartment I was paying a bunch of money for and just be able to overall save some money. So it was kind of really a God thing how we got in there. How I got involved with this, because I didn't want to be a house manager in a sober living. Right. I didn't want to, but it was going to save me $800 a month on rent, essentially rent and utilities. Excuse me. So I didn't really want to be involved in it, and then I got into it with this guy, and I realized that he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing either. You know, I had no clue. But like you said, it was just like trial and error from December 2018 till we bought it in January 2020. That 1 year, all of 2019 was just basically me making mistakes or me getting guys in and trying to understand how that relationship worked between the guys in early recovery as a client and myself as a person
in long-term
recovery as an accountability, a person of accountability, not necessarily like a roommate or a friend,
right,
but as somebody that they're looking for that accountability from.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot through trial and error. Learned a lot through making mistakes and you know, guys getting high in the house before me realizing it, and trying to figure out ways to keep that from happening. You know, playing, I guess trying to not necessarily catch people, but catch people before they start getting down that hole, right? And then, of course, being able to recognize when somebody is deceiving you and different things like that.
Right.
Because
so what was, let me step back for a second. What was the first, I mean, interrupt you, but what was the first time you like had a client relapse, and what was that like? I mean, was it like you just kind of realized that they were getting high, or did you catch them with something, or what was it like?
I don't remember the first one necessarily. I can't say like, oh, this was the first time, because it happened pretty often there at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I do remember the most, I think it may have been the first time, because it's definitely, my memory makes me want to think it was, but there was a kid that was had gotten a good job, and he was taking care of business for the most part, and he would come home at the same time every night, go change, and then go in and get food in the kitchen, and then sit around with the rest of the guys or sit in front of the TV in the living room. And he had this routine almost every night, like 4 or 5 times out of the week. That's what he did.
Right.
Well, he came home one night a little bit earlier than he was supposed to have, and then went straight to bed at like 8 p.m. And I remember thinking that was a weird, change in his schedule, because he would stay up till 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning and then go to bed. So it was just an odd transition that I had never seen him do before.
Right.
And that was when it dawned on me, like, and maybe guys had gotten high before, I don't know.
Right.
Know? But that was the first time I realized that it not necessarily they're not going to obviously show up with these big red flags. It's going to be small things like that.
Yep. Small behavior changes, changes in pattern, attitude difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I think his relapse started a lot earlier than that, and I just never realized it. I thought he was just going through a normal normal evolution of his early recovery, but in fact he was actually just going, backsliding. He got a job, he started getting really lazy with everything else, and he was just focusing on going to work all the time. Well, then he met some girl on Tinder or something,
right?
Which is taking a lot of guys out. Tinder and Bumble has caused quite a bit of issues for guys in early recovery.
It's, I remember when we were in sober living, and one of the, I don't know if he's a counselor, he's like the clinical director, but he came into a group one night and talked to us about, the concept of like, taking that first year off from sex and porn and fucking dating and all of it. And I wish I would have taken it to heart more, because I mean, y'all know me. You knew what I went through at 6 months. Dated a girl, wrong relationship, wasn't over my ex, made a fucking mess of it. I mean, looking back on it now, 2 years ago, that summer, I cheated on that girl emotionally. I got fired from my job all within the same week. And I mean, I was basically in relapse mode. I just didn't get high. But there was about a month there where I didn't leave the stage 4 house, and my roommates were like, "Are you okay? What's up, dude? Get up, start moving around." I was like, ugh, I was just in there fucking miserable, man. I really, looking back on it, and I'm good now, and I've had to learn through fucking up like that. But I wish that I would have taken that and done the year off of dating. It's hard. It's hard. As humans, we need connection, and once you get sober, it's like you don't really have much else besides sex and food.
Yeah.
You know, and you either are going to indulge in one or the other at most of the time, you know. But
no, I agree. I was very similar to that, and it's funny trying to tell guys that now when I know full well that I was being an idiot my first year in recovery. So it's like I understand when they fuck up. I do. I get it because I did the same thing too. I got into a relationship. That this girl had wrecked a lot of shit before she even made it to me. She'd gotten an RA fired at the treatment center because of whatever that's
misconduct,
called.
Sexual misconduct.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that being like, I watched that evolve, and then I still was like, oh, she's perfect for me. And like, so like, it's just a delusion. But you're right. It's because there's nothing left for me to reach for. You know, I've taken all the drugs and alcohol out of my life, and if I want to be successful, I know that I can't go back to those things. So I was just trying to fill the void with everything, and it was fucking Whataburger 3 times a week, and girls every once in a while. Like at that time, it was different for me. But I know that girl came in my life, and it was like, this is perfect. Even though I knew she was toxic.
Right.
I was fully aware of the toxicity that was involved in her, and I dove right into it head first.
Yeah, please take me.
Yeah. And so now whenever I'm like have somebody that's doing that, I'm like, dude, I know the delusion that you're going through, and if you just listen to me and get through this first few months and understand that this isn't the end of the world. This girl isn't going to make the rest of your life better. Mm-hmm. You'll look at yourself and the same way I look at my old self and think, holy shit, what a fucking idiot was I. Thankfully, I moved for 3 months before, like in the middle of that relationship with her.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember when you came back, too. It was a fucking mess.
Man, I
keep that mic a little closer to you, Parker.
I'm glad I listened to suggestions. You know what I'm saying?
Point it right at your mouth. That one's kind of quiet. You got to point it right at your mouth.
Yeah, I'm glad I listened to suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah, because you did that. You didn't date for the first year and a half or 2.
Yeah. I didn't look for anything. In early recovery, man, I was just like absorbing everything. And everything that someone who had more sober time than me or a counselor, like I took it as fact, what they said. And my sponsor at the time, some other guys were at the sober living that had more time. They're like, stay away. And so I did. And then, of course, the more time I got, the more relationships I saw fail in early recovery.
Why'd you look at you? Yeah, why'd you look at me? I thought that's what that was.
I mean, I got to see it. So it is a cool little balance that Marcus and I have at the house, at the houses. And I think it happens a lot of the time. We both view things differently. We both come at situations differently. So it is, we do have a client right now that is doing what I did.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with him a couple weeks ago. Marcus was kind of talking about what he just talked about. And then, this client is mine at one of my house at the Wilson. And we had a conversation about that same thing that night and just my perspective and then how I did it. And even that night he was like, I'm so grateful that like y'all two were in my life.
Yeah.
He was like, I got to hear from Marcus how it was for him on getting into relationships and doing that. And then I got to hear from your side where you didn't. And you waited and you fell in love with yourself again and you got to find, your girlfriend and this and that. And, but it's really cool that, I did. And I think maybe if I would have, I think Marcus is a lot stronger than most. I think if I would have gotten into shit like that, I don't know if I would have stayed sober.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
heartache is a fucking son of a bitch, man. I mean, I think a lot of my addiction was fueled by a mix of heartache and trauma. It's fucking powerful. And I mean, how many fucking songs and films and books are written about it, and it's dangerous. I mean, and even like not just in addiction, but like just in life in general, like, you know, it's crazy that like your brain doesn't develop until you're 25, and then like most people are having sex at 15, 16, you know what I mean? Like you can fuck your life up real quick with sex and romance and relationships, you know. And but yeah, I mean, it's pretty vital to like, let me say this, like I'm getting to the point now where I almost 4 years sober and just now starting to realize some of the things that I do in relationships that are like microaggressions, or like things that I say, or the way that I like act sometimes in the relationship that are like, you know, not super healthy. I'm not like an abusive person, but I like can be super passive aggressive. I can throw mad shade, like I don't know. And it's I guess what I'm trying to say is just like, it's, if you don't figure that shit out, like, you know, give yourself time to get sober and figure some of that shit out, like it's going to come back up in your relationships, you know?
I mean, either way, like I still do that same shit.
Of course.
You know, like I'm a lot better at it, but
yeah.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
It just gave me, the most important part about doing that is finding yourself again.
Right.
And loving yourself again. And because I hated myself, you know, I was 400 pounds, you know, I just hadn't zero love for myself.
Right.
So that time was important for me to find that love for myself, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't easy though. Yeah, man.
Oh man, and being lonely too. Lonely's powerful as fuck too, man. And like, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was saying like, you know, being alone is so terrible for us as humans. And like, we learn that in addiction for sure. Like part of addiction is the isolation aspect of it too. But it's like, you know, what's the worst thing we could do for somebody is put them in solitary confinement in prison. You know what I mean? And so like feeling that loneliness in early recovery, it's like, we don't want to feel that shit. We ran away from it. So I guess I should say I statements, but I would think it applies to most addicts. Is like we, you know, coped with that through drugs and alcohol in like a really severe way. And so when you feel that in early recovery, it's, you know, it's hard to just sit with it. And that's just true of all feelings and all things in recovery. Like that's a whole fucking trick to this whole thing. Like the drugs and alcohol are one part, but figuring out how to just feel your fucking feelings and like not, you know, try to change the way you feel and just learn how to process the shit is like, it's hard, man. And that's what I think that's probably the greatest gift of recovery is not just the sober part of it and the ability to be successful and have a normal, good life, but also like, you know, a lot of people that it never gets bad enough for them. They just walk through life with all this heartache and trauma and angst and resentment, and they don't never have a way to get rid of it, you know, unless they have some kind of relationship with God or something. But, you know, a lot of people are just walking around pissed off at the world, and they may not be an alcoholic or an addict to a point where they have to go to treatment. But you know what I mean? But we get the privilege of going through the steps and going through therapy and stuff and like getting rid of all that shit. And it's a real gift, you know? Yeah,
I think that's why one reason why I believe like aftercare, sober living, some sort of something after treatment is so important because of that, that loneliness, right? We ask everybody that goes through treatment to, you know, leave the opposite sex alone for a year. You know, you have counselors doing it, you've got sponsors doing it. But if you're just doing that, going to work every morning, going home to an empty house, and then going to a meeting from time to time and, you know, maybe doing some IOP or whatever it is you're doing, there's going to be a void there that's not going to be filled by therapy, by AA meetings, by excuse me, a connection to a higher power. I think that's going to fill like 99.9% of everything that somebody needs if they give their all to a program, to something. But at the end of the day, there's got to be something that you go home to, a community, right? And I learned that for myself because I got out of sober living. I was there for, I don't remember, for a full year, right? Full calendar year. I spent the 3 months that I did away, but then came right back and did 6 months. So for a full calendar year, I was in some sort of group living situation, right? And I went from that to living in the apartment I live in now, which is kind of weird. But I went and I lived there for 6 months, and I was by myself. I was just going to work every morning, coming home and just doing my own thing. Like I didn't really have a community anymore. I had gotten to the point where I thought, well, I feel great. I'm, a little over a year sober. I don't need anything from anybody. I was at that point practicing a little bit of celibacy. I had actually taken 9 months of celibacy from, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember it was almost exactly just a touch over 9 months from the time I was in Beaumont to when I had come back, and I was living in that apartment. Excuse me. But for that 6 months, I had nobody to come home to. I wasn't, there was this little small void, and then I slowly stopped going to meetings, and I slowly stopped connecting with my sponsor, whoever I was working with at the time. I stopped talking to friends. I stopped going out with friends, after celebration or whatever. And before I knew it, like a month or two into living by myself, I was completely isolated to my apartment. I didn't really talk to anybody. I didn't see anybody for probably 4.5, 5 months. I was just 100% by myself. And even a year into sobriety, I was like on the edge. I was in full relapse mode. I was getting resentful at everything that was going on in my life. I was upset about the way where I was physically, with my weight, with my image, with who I was as a person, essentially. And it all started with that, like, just completely disconnecting from everything. And that's why I think. And I was celibate at the time, so I wasn't even really seeing any women. Yeah. At that point, I was probably, at least, theoretically, ready to at least try and date. But, even then, I don't think I was. I still don't think I am now, because I can feel him looking at me.
No judgment from there, man.
So, I mean, that's what I was trying to say is I think that community aspect, that having somebody to come home to, having other people that are in the same boat as you is huge, because as much as you pour yourself into AA, NA, whatever program you're working, as hard as you are in the steps and stuff like that, if you're doing it by yourself every like all throughout the day, when you come home, like it probably works for a lot of people. But why not give yourself another little percentage of a chance, right? To come home whenever there's other people that are doing the same thing. And then you're less likely to be reaching for women, for food, for different things like that. And maybe start reaching for that community a little bit more. Because I know that even now, when I find myself in a stressful situation, or if I find myself, feeling a little bit irritable and discontent, I start to think, like, I'll start reaching for something. And it's like, what is it that's going to take this away from me? And I mean, even now, 3.5 years sober, it's women, it's food, it's exercise, it's social media, whatever it is. I start reaching and grasping for something, and I can feel myself doing it.
Right.
And it really upsets me, because I know that in the back of my head, that's still my addict's mentality. It's always going to be there, no matter what I do. It's always going to be there, and I have to stay in front of it now. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important thing to think about when we're like looking at getting sober and staying sober, is like, what does your community look like? Mm-hmm. Where are you gonna come home to every night?
Mm-hmm. That is probably the most, or the best aspect of sober living that I probably miss the most, is the community. Just the fact that you could go home to where we lived at the door. I mean, I don't even know what there's, like 10 apartments, 12 apartments, and then times that by 3, so 36 dudes. Yep. And like, there's always somebody to hang out with. There's always something going on any time of day or night. Like I remember, John Kelly, my next door neighbor, we'd always I'd come home and he'd be on the porch and I'd chill with him, or there'd be somebody on the porch somewhere and I'd chill with him, smoke a cigarette, talk. How's your day? Like there was always something going on. And like I moved out. I miss that. And just like Stage 4 House, we were always just like, what's up, dude? Like just stoop time, and I have that here with my roommate now. I'm like, that's part of why when I'm on campus at the center, I hang out for a long time, because like that's kind of the community for me now. And like I hate COVID, because I don't fucking see anybody. Yeah. And I can't hug nobody. And I'm a fucking hugger, that. And it's I totally agree with you, man. The community part of it is. It's huge. But I want to touch on something you said too, like, you said that the addict brain, like, that'll always be there for sure. But I've come to this place where I think it's not just addicts. I think everybody's like that a little bit. It got really bad for us. Right. But I think everybody's like trying to change the way they feel all the time. Like you see it in all aspects of society, like especially in dating with our generations and the generations that are younger than us, or the generation that's younger than us. Like, it's so bad. The term fuckboy has only been around for, less than 5 years or whatever, or more. But it's like, that's what people do. We're all using each other for shit, and it's rough, man, you know? But, yeah, so let me see what else we said we were going to talk about. Oh, Parker, you just hit your 3 years. How you feel? Well, like 2 days ago.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Consecutively. I don't think he took a day off.
No.
He may have.
Keep that mic in front of your mouth.
No, yeah, man, it's good.
How long you been with your girl?
It'll be a year and like 7 days.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Which I would have to say that's probably the bigger accomplishment for him.
Absolutely. It is, yeah, man. Yeah, I was talking to Dan the other day. It's pretty crazy that our year, Elise and I's year, will be, well, our first date was at your show.
Yeah.
That was...
And I played there last weekend. You didn't come, so I don't know.
I did.
Okay, asshole.
Whoa.
What was that? Oh.
But yeah, man, it's...
Wait, pause.
Did it pause it?
It did pause it. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so...
I got too many fucking wires around
Yeah,
here.
you're about to yank it back off with your chair. It's when you spin your chair. Yeah, there you go.
I like spinning my chair, okay?
Well, got hung up there.
So 3 years, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It really is. It's... I know... I don't know. It's hard to say it. Like, I'm confident in my recovery.
Yeah.
And, like, I know that I've done well. So, like, the 3 years is... It's cool and all to say, like, I have 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, it's just my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's cool to celebrate, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's really cool for my family.
Yeah.
At least people that knew me in the past and how I was and then how I am now. And, like, I appreciate it. But it's come to, like, with me, that, like, I've come to terms, like, this is who I am. Like,
Right.
I'm used to this. But, like I said, it is cool to celebrate.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus and I were texting the other day, and, you know, I say this a lot, and he probably, I know he gets tired of hearing it, but, like, he's a huge part of my 3 years.
Yeah.
When I first got to sober living, I wasn't doing shit. You know, I just kind of laid around. He drugged me to H&I's every weekend for almost
about
a year. And just things like that was crucial. I was going to go to South Plains. He convinced me to go and apply at the center. We were on our way back from an H&I when he convinced me to apply to the center.
Mm-hmm. He's the reason I applied too.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I'm in the center.
Helped me with the application, everything.
Yeah, and
fucking good guy / piece of shit. Just kidding.
But yeah, man, it's I don't know. It's been really cool having this guy help me through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. What do you think's changed the most for you in the last year?
Elise.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing.
She's gonna cry like a baby when she hears that.
I love you. I love you, baby.
She, you know, like I told her when we first got together, it might sound bad to other people, but like this is where I'm at in my life, and like I had to get to this point to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And again, like y'all might think this is fucked up, but I was like, I'm happy. I was happy before her. I'm happy with her. And if this doesn't work out, I'm still going to be happy. Just because I love who I am.
That's
and
boundaries.
I had to get to that point to where I had to love myself regardless of relationship, regardless of whatever. For me to stay sober and for me to enjoy life, I had to love myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her that, but I am a little more happier with her.
Of course.
But yeah, dude, Elise has been amazing in my life. She's helped me grow. She's taught me a lot of things. She holds me accountable, just like all my friends do.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't let me slide on things. She works harder than anybody I know.
Yeah.
And you know, I've come to really appreciate her and truly like cherish our time together and you know, what our relationship has become. And you know, we got together, We got a house together. We live together. You know, it's amazing.
It's awesome, man. And that's like a pretty awesome relationship as far as the model for people in recovery, because she's a normie, but she works in the addiction field. She's a counselor, right?
Yeah, she's a therapist. At the branch.
Yeah, so she works with drug addicts, so she knows, like, my girlfriend, great, super healthy, happy relationship, but it's also like different because she's just a normie and doesn't know. She's super supportive though, but like it's different. I'm sure than ours is probably different than y'all's in the fact that like she probably like knows the signs a little better than a normal person would. That's cool and that's kind of interesting. Like, but it's awesome.
She's good. She doesn't step over any boundaries though. Like she doesn't like try to throw some sponsor knowledge at me or
because I think you've talked about that before, where dating a girl
in recovery,
where at least could have a similar outlook of like, because she knows what you're supposed to do. Even if she hasn't necessarily had to experience it in her own life, she's experienced it with hundreds, if not thousands, of clients. So she knows what it takes to have sustainable recovery, right? But instead of I don't know this. I don't live with them. I don't watch their relationship evolve. But what I would assume is, from what he's saying, is like she knows what it takes, but she doesn't overstep and act like what you've talked about, the concept that you've discussed before, where your ex would tell you to go call your sponsor.
Yes, and I don't want to badmouth her. She's a great person, and she had stronger recovery than I did then.
But let's be honest, y'all were both like.
Weren't even a year yet.
Not even 6. We were at 6 months sober.
I had 6. She had 9.
So
and she would throw shit like that at me. Exactly. Like, you need to call your sponsor. You need to do a 4-step or something like that. And I probably did for sure. But like
that's not boundaries. Yeah, that wasn't a relationship type thing. Right?
That's exactly.
It was probably out of the kindness of like that was all out of good intentions, right? But that's just you get too mixed up, and that's why I've tried to stay away from dating girls in recovery, and it's because I've seen that. I've learned from you talking about that, and I've seen it in my own life, and it's just not worth it. But I was curious about something you said. You said like this is how your life is now. Was that something that happened like real early on, or does that just like evolve over time? Like you just realize that?
No, I mean it's kind of like one of those things like where like when the obsession left me, like I can't put my finger on when that was.
Yeah. Okay.
It just like happened. One day I was sitting in a meeting, Michi said something, and I was just like, damn, I don't have that obsession anymore. And it could have been gone for 6 months, or it could have been gone 2 days before.
I get what you're saying.
And it's kind of that same way with that. Like I can't like put my finger on it whenever I was just like, oh yeah, this is just how my life is now.
Yeah, and so that's what I was thinking about in that moment is like we always like, at least I know for myself, I was always looking for that moment of when is my life going to get better. When I was early in recovery, when do I stop thinking about drinking and getting high? When does all this actually go away? And there was no like profound spiritual experience. Like I had a bunch of them throughout time, but even then, like I'd still like think about getting fucked up every once in a while. But then all of a sudden, like you're talking about, I don't know when the fuck it was. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I know at some point, probably after that 6-month period of me being just like super dry, so I would have been somewhere around 18 months sober. All of a sudden I realized that this is just my life. And it had there was nothing leading up to it. There was no big paradigm shift. I think it was like a slow turn. And then all of a sudden, boom, here we are. And I don't know. I just thought it was interesting when you said that, because I think a lot of people now in early recovery probably are looking for that light bulb moment.
Right.
And it doesn't happen for everybody like that. I'm sure some people have experienced like that light bulb moment.
Right.
Like, this is, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. This is what the rest of my life is going to look like. But the majority of the time, it's just all of a sudden you look up and you're 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, however long it takes. And this is where you are. This is who you are. The same way that I realized going in on May 7th, 2017, I realized at the end of my addiction, at the depths of my bottom, all of a sudden I just woke up and I realized this is who I am.
Right.
It changed the opposite way. It moved just as slowly and just as progressively as I went down, I went back up.
Right.
And so I thought that was interesting.
I had kind of I wouldn't say it's a light bulb moment. It's similar to what you're saying, but I had something that I recognized, I don't know, maybe a year ago, but, you know, play music. I'm in bars a lot to play music, and I'm constantly being asked by people, like, hey, do you want a shot? Can I buy you a beer? And I used to always say, I can't. And then at some point I realized that I said, I don't drink. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know when that happened, but I realized it one day, and I was like, oh shit. Like, I used to say I can't. And now I just say, like, oh, I don't drink. Like, and it's kind of real subtle, but it's a different context. You know what I mean? Like saying that I can't drink because I'll get fucked up. Or like, I don't drink anymore. It's like, you know, saying can't is like I have a compulsory thing with it. Saying I don't is like I choose this now. Yeah. And like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's like going from like somebody telling you not to you telling yourself not to, kind of thing. And not necessarily not even telling yourself not to, but not even having that desire. It just not is even a thing. I used to get major anxiety when I go to your shows, not to be in the bar or anything like that, but when I'd go to get a drink, like I'd get like a Red Bull or water or whatever, I used to just have this huge anxiety of the bartender just being like, oh, well, another one of you. You know what I mean? And that's never happened. Every bartender I've ever dealt with in recovery has been nothing but like nice about it. Right. Like as soon as you order a non-alcoholic drink, and then like this last show when we were at the Garden, I went up there and I said, can I have a Red Bull and a ginger beer? And she's like, or a ginger ale. And she came out and she's like, I have a ginger beer. And I said, oh, is it non-alcoholic? And she looked and she spent some time making damn sure it had no alcohol in it. And she goes, yeah, it is. And she was super nice about it. And I was like a little bit anxious about asking her when I said, oh, are you sure it doesn't have any alcohol in it? And I got very anxious. And I think she noticed that. And then she looked and she was very, very nice. But that, I would have not done that. Had it been like before, like a year ago, I would have been like, okay, cool. And then I would just thrown it away. Wouldn't even looked at it. I would just thrown it away. I don't want to I don't want to get weird about this. Let's not even worry about it. It's like too weird for me.
I get it.
But now, like, I feel comfortable, like, being openly saying, like, and it's not a choice, really. It's just like, that is what it is. It's just my life now. I don't have the desire to drink. And it's not that I would, like, if I was to accidentally get a beer or something like that, it wouldn't be the end of my life. I would be really upset, but it would just be, it is what it is. So now I'm just more cautious, I think, in actually looking at it.
I have something similar too. And it's funny because it happened recently. It happened at that last show at the Garden, and I hadn't thought about it in a while, but I used to always worry that if a bunch of people in recovery came, that the bar wouldn't make any money and then they wouldn't want us back. And that's never happened, but I'm always worried about it. Like you know what I mean? Yeah. And I used to go ask them, like, how'd we do tonight? They're like, oh, we did great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, y'all killed it. We did great. Like,
Shit, I was so anxious that I couldn't even make it to the bar to order a water. I'd be like, oh, somebody's going to see me at the bar, even though I'm at Dan's show and there's 20 other sober people here. But I would just be like, no, I'll just wait till somebody asks me.
It's weird. Like, I bought somebody beer a while back. I think we were going to the lake or something, and they asked me to bring them a beer, and I'm like, you know, like, bring them like a 6-pack, and I was like so anxious. I was like, what if somebody sees me? You know what I mean? It was fine, like, and I wouldn't do that for everybody, but the person that asked, like, you know, it's like close homie, but it's just funny, like the anxiety we have about shit like that. You know, like, I wasn't worried about like me having the beer or like, you know, I was worried about like one of y'all seeing me. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? I used to have dreams like that. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like my using dreams, you know, like first getting sober, like in treatment, I could be of shooting up. And then they just like over the years, they gradually like declined to where the last couple times I've had them, and I don't have them very much, but I've had dreams where people thought I relapsed and I didn't. And I was like pleading my case to everybody. They're like, no, dude, you relapsed. Like, I really didn't though. Like, and in the dream, I was sober still, but everybody thought I'd relapsed. And it's weird how our consciousness changes with it. You know what I mean? Even our subconscious, like,
because your subconscious is so confident that you're not going to ever relapse or that this is just who you are now. That's interesting, because it's like before it was like we'd get fucked up. Unfortunately, I don't get to remember my dreams. I'm sure I dream, but I don't remember them. I sleep very deep now, which is something it took me a long time to get used to. But now when I'm out, and then as soon as I wake up, I'm awake. It's really weird. But that's funny that you bring that up, because it's like it's swapped. It's flipped over to where your consciousness is just, or your subconscious is just like, no, we're not ever. This is just who we are now. We're not ever going to get fucked up again.
Yeah.
But you know, now the fear is like that people are going to think that we did.
Right.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
But what I had an experience like that too. A buddy of mine from high school was here for law school for a little while. I don't know where he's at now. I think he's doing it all from back home with his parents. But he's in a wheelchair. He's always been in a wheelchair his entire life. And they put him in West Village on the second floor for some reason.
Yeah.
Like probably the only person in that dorm that's in a wheelchair, and they put him on the second floor. And the elevator was always broken. But anytime he'd have to go get groceries, he'd ask me to go with him. So we just made it a thing. Like every weekend or so, every 2 weekends, we'd go get groceries because he couldn't carry his shit up. And almost every weekend, he'd buy beer. Like he'd buy at least an 18-pack or a 30-pack or something. So we'd be walking around Walmart, and there'd be beer in my cart, and I'd be pushing the cart because obviously he's pushing himself. And I was always terrified because we were right there on cue, usually
close to campus.
Close to campus. And one day we did run into some kids that lived in the sober dorms, and like we were on our way to the beer aisle. We were like steps away from the beer aisle. 5 more minutes and there would have been beer in my cart. And I ran into these kids and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And like they knew me from the center, from ASAS, and all these different things where I'm like, I've been around for a little while. Like it would have just been devastating had they seen me with beer in my cart, because I would have been like mortified. Right. Then they would have been questioning like, "Oh my God, is this guy even sober? Like he's been in the center for this many years and he's the president of ASAS. Does he even do this?" I was terrified.
I really think like I'm at a point to where, like, I know rumors are huge in recovery and those things like that, but I think I'm at that point in my life that like I don't care if someone starts a rumor about me. You know, the people that make a decision about me being in the center or me having my job or whatever, right? Like, if they hear a rumor and they want to come talk to me about it, that's fine. Like I've gone and bought beer for my dad when they were in town visiting. He was cooking. I went and bought them beer. Right. Somebody would have ran into me, and then they would have gone to. I mean, I've gotten to that point where like I don't care, because like I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing is right. Yeah. So if the rumors don't affect me anymore, but it's. I
wish I was like that. Like I don't know if it's because I'm an artist, musician, or what, but I care so fucking much about what people think about me. It drives me fucking crazy. I mean, like I'll put on the persona that I don't, but I really fucking do. Yeah, it's so bad. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting topic too. I was just thinking about that. I texted him a clip from Joe Rogan's podcast about David Goggins was saying something along those lines. And now I don't like worry so much about, like, I think I just get anxious about people thinking something about me, but the reality is I shouldn't be caring about that. And it was so what he was saying basically is that he doesn't care what people think of him now, but what he worries about, and this is David Goggins, what he worries about is whenever he gets to the end of his life, right? And he doesn't really necessarily talk about himself as a religious person, but he gets to the end of his life, and somebody's going to be there judging you. Yeah. And I believe that too. I was raised Catholic. Yeah. Like some part of that was beating in my head. You know what I mean? That I'm going to have to face judgment when I die, whatever that entity may be. I don't know. That part's still fluid in my mind, but at the end I feel like I agree with that, where at the end we're going to be judged by something, right? And he's like talking about how he doesn't give a shit about like all this other stuff that's worldly, but it's like what that person's up there with your name and your picture on a screen or whatever, and it's going through all the things that that you would have been, right? So it's like, so like for me, it would, if I would have chose to stay a drug addict and an alcoholic or whatever, it would have popped up with all these different things of like, oh, you know, owner of this company, helping a bunch of other men, like whatever else I'm shooting for now, like, and I would have been like, you know, had I stayed in that life, I would have looked at that screen and said, who the fuck is this person? That's not me. I died in a car accident or something because I was drunk. Whatever, you know, could have happened to me before, and then that judgment, that person, that God or whoever it was that's judging me and saying, no, this is who you were supposed to be. And there's like all these different things that were, if I don't make the decision to push myself further and do better and keep striving for more and more and more, like I'm going to look at that and come up short. You know what I mean? And I want, and the same thing that he was saying is what I want now is for that person up there to be drawing out my life and saying, fuck, he handled that. What else can we do? What else can we throw at him? Keep going, keep going, keep going. And like me trying to surpass what that entity up there has for me. Not necessarily what's going on here in the world. Because if I focus on that shit, I'm gonna aim at like what my peers think and say like, oh, I just want to do just above what my peers, think is exceptional. But my peers have like a really low expectation of life. That person up there that's judging me, that spiritual component, the expectations are like astronomical. Right. So I intend to like blow out those expectations and move into that direction. I don't know if that made much sense, but
no, I really like that idea, that concept of like being better than the best version of yourself, basically. David Goggins is so fucking ridiculous, man. It makes me feel like a little bitch.
Oh my god! I've been listening to his podcast and running, and it hurts.
Fucking crazy how hard he goes, man. Like Jesus,
it hurts. But it's made me realize that the minimum effort gets you the minimum expectation or minimum outcome. I guess is the right word. And sometimes I'm even now, like as hard as I work now, as hard as I push myself in every aspect, I'm only probably about moderately, putting in moderate effort. As hard as I think I'm doing, as hard as I think I'm working, it's not. There's so much more capacity for work, for school, for physical exercise, whatever there may be. I'm still lazy, you know what I mean? Right. I still have like a sense of laziness, and so that expectation is low right now. But I'm pushing harder and harder every day. But
I think one thing I pick up on Marcus is he's a lot harder on himself than than he should, because what he does is a lot more than what people will do in having 5 years sober. He does a lot. And one of the things that I've heard him say to me, I've heard him say to clients about work, all work is effort. Yeah. And I've learned that from him, is like how much I can fit into a day. Yeah. We had a client not too long ago try to tell us how busy he was, and Marcus told him, was like, you're not going to convince anybody else. Like, we're the last two people in this world that you're going to convince that you're too busy. Right. But I didn't get there like on my own. Like, I had to learn from him and learn how like time management, things like that. But I've learned, man, is work, all work is effort. Yeah. Give effort, and you can get a lot accomplished. So I got a lot of my drive from him. But he does a lot more than he gives himself credit for, though, sometimes. So
well, yeah, but it's that mindset is like the level of effort that I've put in today is more than I put in yesterday. But it's not right. Tomorrow's got to be more. Right. You know what I mean? Tomorrow's got to be more. And and it's exactly that, where you're like, well, what you said, compared to somebody that's a little bit further along than me, I can't hold myself to a standard of like anybody around me, anybody who's before me or after me, peers in general. My standard is like beyond that of what's expected of me. You know what I mean? Right. And this like that concept I was talking about of like this person who I'm meant to be, I have to try and exceed that standard. Right. And it's exactly what brought us onto this topic, is like the judgment of others, the comparison of others to others, and all of that. Like we're talking about bringing it all back to like somebody seeing us buying alcohol or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that comparison is so like, it's just so silly. It doesn't even matter. Like, because at the end of the day, my goal is to be better than who I was ever intended to be. So like this worldly stuff is just all super irrelevant now. Like having this conversation evolve a little bit, it makes me realize like every comparison, every expectation that I've ever put on myself is so irrelevant, and that's why I don't even think about it in that sense of like, when people like we all talk shit about me running to the house the other day. I ran 3.2 miles, which is not that far to work, And, you know, both guys that were there, him and the RA that was on shift.
What, you ran from your apartment to Treehouse?
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally exactly 3.2 miles. It's a 5K.
Yeah.
It's a nice 5K. It wasn't like anything extreme, but they were both talking shit, you know, making fun of me a little bit. And like in the back of my head, I was just like I get that, but at the same time, it's like that's like why? Like I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me because I was just like, this is what I want to do. This is how I push myself a little bit harder than I did yesterday. And I've been waking up every morning and recording myself on my phone, talking shit to myself essentially. And the folder.
You told me that the other day, and I fucking love that idea, and I want to implement
it. It's been hard because
I think it's great. It's a great idea.
Even like only what is it, the 11 days into it, I've missed a couple of days, and I like it's even fucking worse to get up the next morning and say I fucking missed yesterday. I was a bitch yesterday. Yeah. And I say that because I'm hard on myself, right? But the folder is called "Don't Be a Bitch." Oh yeah. And I wake up every morning and I say the time or what day it is, what time it is, and if I was able to accomplish what I was supposed to yesterday. And the bare minimum is 1 mile before 12 p.m. Yeah. That's it. That's the rules that I've set on myself is 1 mile of running before 12 p.m. And then basically after that, if my whip tells me that I'm above, you know, whatever. If I'm in the green, then I can go to the gym and work pretty hard in the gym. But if it tells me I'm in the yellow, then it's just that 1 mile, or the red. Let's just that 1 mile, get that down, and we'll relax for the rest of the day. Excuse me. And then we'll try again tomorrow.
Right.
And so I've been trying to push myself with that. And I don't know. I've gotten to the point now where I'm very motivated, but I don't know. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
I don't care what many people think of me, but I think I care what I think of myself a lot.
Yeah.
Well, too much.
Yeah.
I think I would just fucking like put myself down into like a fucking depression of just like I'd listen to it like 2 days later and just like fuck it. Oh my god.
No, what's great.
That's my head. That's my fucking head 24/7. So.
Yeah, but what I do is I'll talk about how fucking weak I've been prior. Yeah. And it's like, all right, now as soon as get all that bullshit out of the way, like call myself a bitch, do whatever I need to do, and then the last few minutes is this is how you fix that. I have to, so I made a mistake. I didn't fucking run one day or whatever. One of the reasons was I had somebody stay over the night before. And then we woke up late, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to run. Well, then I'm recording myself saying that. And then that's when I said, all right, well, yeah, you fucking do. And it was like, well, you got to go to work anyways. And in the back of my head, I thought, that's really far because that's over there and back. It's like almost 7 miles. So like that's a lot for one day for me right now because I'm not at that point yet. I mean, with my endurance, but it was like, okay, well, you didn't succeed. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. So here's how you fix it. And you just fucking do it. And I did it, and I felt great. I don't hurt today. This was yesterday. I don't hurt today. I feel good. I feel refreshed. And it was like
did you run back home or did you?
Yeah, I ran back home. Damn. So that was
I saw him walking.
That's a lie. That's an absolute
You saw
lie.
him fucking just outside of the side of the road.
I saved, and because of that, like just
screenshot of the data.
I've never ever shown anybody my Under Armour app, but I have an Under Armour app that tracks every run that I've ever taken. Yeah. But because of that fear of somebody doubting me, I have it all saved. So I have every mile that I've ever run ever logged on my phone. But I've never shown anybody, and I probably never will.
I'm just gonna give you shit enough till you do one day.
I mean, you can see it. It's like 180 miles or something like that since I started. But where was I going with that? So I talk shit about myself for a good chunk of the time in the recording, but always at the end I give us there's a solution. This is how you fix it. This is how you get better. And it's like you're talking about, it's just effort. It's just work. There's something. There's going to be a way out of this, no matter what. And then I listen to it immediately, and it's like you can hear me. I'm tired. I'm usually 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, making my bed, whatever it is I'm doing. I'm like getting dressed, so you can hear me like throwing shit around. Right. And sometimes you can barely hear me because I'm so far away from the phone. But for whatever reason, like listening to it immediately after, it's like somebody else is telling me this stuff. Yeah. And that's why I've started doing it, is because I can sit there and bitch about my life and talk about how I'm tired of being so weak and weak-minded and all these different things, but there's always a little bit of solution at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I've kind of adopted that there's a weakness inside of me, no matter what. And it started back when I was getting fucked up. Like there was a weakness there, and I've done a lot of work since then, and I've fixed a lot of it. But at the end of the day, like there's that human mindset. Like there's a weakness inside of me.
Yeah.
And I've adopted that in everything that I'm doing now. And sometimes that weak-minded person does take over. But like another thing that I've started doing is at the gym, I carry a 15-pound medicine ball with me everywhere. Like the only time I don't have it in my hands is when I'm actually doing a lift. And so I'll lift, and then I have to get up and carry that stupid fucking ball. And I walk around the gym between sets, and then I do pull-ups with the fucking ball in between my legs. And that ball has started to symbolize the weakness. This is my weak mind. And I've heard of somebody doing it before, and I've thought about doing it. There was a guy that I can't remember who he was, but he carried a 40-pound kettlebell around with him for like a whole year.
Oh, it was on Rogan. I remember.
It was a pod. I don't remember.
Yeah,
it was a
on
podcast.
Rogan. I remember. I can't remember the guy's name, but
and it was like that. It was just like this is like his inner bitch or something like that. It was like this weakness, and that's where I kind of remembered seeing that and hearing that, and it's like I want to do that now. As messed up as that sounds, like
no, I like it. I like the symbolic meaning of that.
I mean, there's a major weakness in who I am. Even if like I'm doing better than I ever have been, I want to continue to get better. Yeah. And recognizing that I am a weak person from time to time, and that's inside of me, and understanding it and not being, everybody has that, and everybody's trying to push it down and hide it. Mm-hmm. But I think being able to recognize it and put it out on the floor and say, hey, this is who he is, this is where he is. That's the only way that we're going to be able to overcome that weakness.
Yeah. I can relate. Fuck, dude. My whole time in recovery, I've struggled with diet and exercise so fucking much because I just don't have that. I don't have that background. I didn't play sports. I just have never really, that's not anything I've ever, dealt with. I'm super inexperienced, and I just I've honestly been thinking that I'm going to start, I think I want to work the steps over diet. Like, can't believe that I'm powerless over fucking junk, bad food. Mm-hmm. Like it's, and so, and I love, fucking Rogan's Conquer Your Inner Bitch. Like that's, it's powerful, and it's true. And like, you could apply it to a lot of things, recovery, just failure and success in general. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that, and it's normal too. And it's like kind of the culture now in our society is like, it's okay to be, it's okay to be fat. It's and I'm not trying to be mean to anybody, but like that shit's dangerous, man. Like, and I'm overweight, and I don't want people to be like, it's okay if you're overweight. Cause like, it's really not. Like I could fucking die a lot younger than I need to cause I'm overweight, and it's like, it's a cop out, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And I don't it's something I struggle with a lot, because I don't think I hear a lot of people say exactly what it's okay to be exactly how you be happy in your own skin, and I agree with that, but I don't think it should have anything to do with what you look like, anything to do with a number on a scale, anything to do with BMI or anything like that. It's, are you healthy? Yeah, that's what I am concerned about, because I deal with body dysmorphia. At one point, I was 240 pounds. Looking at me now, I'm exactly 200 pounds. And so I was substantially heavier than I am right now. So I know what that was like to like be kind of just like fat, and just overweight and uncomfortable and super unhealthy. My resting heart rate was like 90. Yeah. And it's 45 now. Damn. And so I've cut it in half.
It's awesome.
That's what I look at. Because if I look at the scale, if I look at my BMI, if I look at all those different things, I get really self-conscious. Right. And I start comparing myself to other people, like we've talked about, like this comparison. But if I look at my resting heart rate went up over the last 2 months because I quit running. Yeah. And that was like one thing that was, and one indicator to me, it was like, all right, now I'm not doing something right. Right. And I would get winded going upstairs or something like that. And it's like, I could run a substantial amount of distance. But if I go up the stairs too fast, I'm tired. You know what I mean?
I have a class on the 3rd floor of one of the buildings on Tech, and every time I like get all the way up and I like hide in the door, like, especially with a mask on, you know, and I just like make sure I like hope nobody's gonna come through the door and see my ass just panting and catching my breath before I go into the fucking classroom. It sucks, like you know.
Yeah, that's the things that we got to look at. Like, sure, like there's indications of like somebody not being healthy, right? Like, you know, weight and different things like that. But I think there's such a wide spectrum of what people can look like. Because I'm still not like really low BMI. I'm not like chiseled when I'm at my most healthy. When I can run the longest distance and lift the most weight. I was like that in, I think, March of this year. Yeah. I was at the peak of my physical endurance or whatever, my physical fitness.
Best you've ever been.
Best I've ever been.
Right.
Ever. And I mean, I was running 10 plus miles at a time. I was lifting regularly. I was eating really, really clean, but I didn't look like an athlete. Right. My body just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's.
So you're at your best back in March, and you said you didn't feel like you looked your best. Is that what you said?
I didn't look like what you would consider like I probably like. So you could have put somebody that was less physically fit than me next to me and probably looked better, right? There could have. It's just how people's bodies are made up. Like there's some people that I know that look typically fit, right? What you would think, like society has named, you know, attractive or, you know, physically fit with abs or whatever, with the V-shaped body. And I probably I know people that look like that, and I know that at that point in my life, I was much more physically fit than them. Right. And I didn't look like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think the spectrum is too wide to be looking at appearances, you know, body, BMIs, weights, and all that stuff. It's way too wide. Right. It all has to come down to how you are able to kind of perform. Right. You know what I mean? With whatever disabilities or whatever setbacks you have, if you can perform and be healthy, that's what is important. Right. Your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, right, different things like that. Those are the factors that are, I think, more indicative of health. Right. You know,
like even like look at some of the strongmen, you know, in the strongman competitions, and they got like big guts, but they're like, you know, fucking can lift 1,000 pounds or whatever, something crazy. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's definitely a wide range of appearances, and I agree. You know, and like, it's weird because I've noticed a trend with, you know, people in recovery. Like it's either one way or the other. Either people get super obsessed with like exercise and diet, or they just fucking get fat. You know? And you know, I did the, you know, former. But yeah. So I mean, that was, you know, kind of the last thing I really wanted to touch on before we get to this very last thing. Is the whole reason we did this podcast today was talk about y'all are going to start doing a podcast, and I'm going to help produce it.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking on the phone before we got here. He was asking, like, what are we going to do? And I said, I have no idea. I don't have any direction. I have no vision or direction for this, and that's atypical of what I do. Yeah. Like, I've sat down and with the Cove and with how we do basically everything, like, I've tried to have some sort of vision and plan for everything. Yeah. But I feel like this is something that's more, it's got to be more fluid. Yeah. Than that. You know, this isn't a business plan. Right. Like I just want to be able to sit down and talk with you guys and have people hear whatever we do, to where however it happens organically. Yeah. Like I just want, the one thing that I do want is for people to be able to connect to the Lubbock recovery community from wherever they are. Yeah. You know, because I come from a rural area in the Texas Panhandle where there is basically no recovery. Yeah. And so, if anything, I want to be able to offer some sort of outlet for that. That's it. That's all. That's the only one staple thing that I want, is to be able to give people who aren't here in Lubbock, or who aren't in a place where they feel comfortable with the recovery community, or who just don't have one at all, to be able to listen and say, hey, you know, that's cool that they're talking about these things that I'm going through, these concepts that I'm dealing with, and just to try and be another resource for people who aren't even, you know, people who are here, right? Because I mean, they get to see us in a certain capacity as, you know, leadership of some sort, but we're not that when we sit here. You know what I mean?
I think the best part about podcasting and the reason why it's so popular is that like there's a real need for raw conversation because, you know, for the past, 70 years that television and film has been around, it's highly produced, highly processed, and like, and now it's become to the point where like our social media, our news, movies, film, like it's also processed and fake, and people like really, I don't really watch TV hardly at all. There's like one or two shows that I keep up with, but like most of the shit I am entertained by is just podcasts because it's just raw, and it's, I think there's a real need for like just real reality, you know what I mean? And I think it's gonna be cool, man. I'm excited to produce it. Like, the one thing I struggle with this one is like being consistent and like all the logistical stuff of like organizing people and like scheduling and shit like that. And I feel like that's probably one more of a strength of yours. And maybe, the three of us together kind of doing this and me just running the equipment and then y'all kind of planning the guests and the conversations. And maybe I can pop in a little bit here and there if I have a question or something. Absolutely. I think it'll be cool,
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about is that, we want you to be a part of it, a huge part of it, obviously. Because, none of this would be possible without you anyways. This is all your thing. And I appreciate, I want to say that I really appreciate you letting us do this because, this is, like I said, this is something that I want just to have as a resource for other people in the community. Because that's where the entire vision for the COVID started. Like, is just to fill a void, to fill a niche.
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 Yeah, not Nietzsche, but niche.
Niche, yeah. That like there was something open in the community, and we were able to come in there and feel that. Well, I want to be able to do that with media too. Like, I'm sure there's tons of recovery podcasts. Like, and I don't even necessarily want it to be 100% focused on recovery. Like, it can go whatever direction it wants. I'm super interested in the fitness. He does keto, which blows my fucking mind.
Yeah. We didn't even get to. I was going to ask about that a little more, but we can do it because we're going to do a part 2 of y'all's podcast, so we can keep this going. We can take a break in a second and then start back up. But yeah, keep going. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, I was like, so that like him doing that, like it doesn't make sense to me because I have to eat noodles.
Yeah,
I can't not.
Gotta consume the nudes.
I can't. Yeah, in every way. I can't not eat pasta, and so
God, I fucking love carbs, bro.
Like there's a difference in determination and dedication between the two of us.
Yeah.
Because I can be determined and dedicated to running my ass off or lifting heavily in the gym, but whenever it comes down to food, like there's like food laid out in front, I can't not fucking eat it,
bro.
And I'm like, hey, why aren't you eating this?
I can't do either of those things. So fuck both of y'all.
And he's like, I can't eat it, and I'm like, the fuck you can't. I will. Yeah. I can't have that mindset.
Yeah.
There's a difference there, and I fucking respect him for that because I can't do that. I have a hard time with that one.
So essentially, we're just going to call it the Cove Recovery and Podcast. Right, or the Cove Podcast. Or
I don't know.
The Cove.
The Cove. I have no idea.
I think calling just the Cove is cool. Honestly,
I'm so bad at names. We all named the Cove together.
Yeah, we sat there for like 2 hours just brainstorming.
Process.
Yeah. There was a fuckload of names thrown out.
Yeah, there's a lot of really dumb ones too.
I'm terrible at like business shit, but I come up with band names all fucking day. I'm just like,
kind of like what you were talking about, how it's just going to be raw, and I think that's something we need. We need day-to-day conversations of like even like you're saying all over recovery, fitness, whatever, relationship, whatever we want to talk about. I think that's something that people need. That sometimes that's what people need for their recovery is an escape to go listen to 3 jackasses talk about something.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And
speak for yourself.
Fucking asshole. But one of the things that I think that makes us work so well together, or why we work so well together, and why it helps so many people, and why I think this will be good as well, is because we are different.
Oh yeah,
in so many fucking ways. We what did we do in class? What was that thing where we just found out we were exact opposites on everything?
It's not the Enneagram. It was the other one. Type focus.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were legit like exact opposites.
Yeah.
And where you think we wouldn't get along at all.
He's Mama Bear, I'm Papa Bear.
Pretty much.
Oh, I know. I've seen y'all clash, but like that's one thing I love about y'all's friendship is like y'all clash, but like y'all are always cool about it and like immediately are fine. Like y'all have no problem with conflict with each other.
I don't think I've ever been upset with him.
No, and that's the thing. Like it never exceeds like it never gets into anger or like I want to punch you.
No,
it's just like
except
kind of a dick right now.
Except when he tries to put his finger in my butt.
What?
You said you liked it.
Never done that to him.
Now he's gonna deny it as if he hasn't ever tried it.
Yeah.
But I think I mean we've been working. I've been helping him with whenever it was 12-Step Warriors.
Yeah.
We've been doing this with the Cove. We also work together at our day job, and like of course we've had disagreements, but it's never like it's either like I trust his judgment. And I feel he trusts mine. That like if he thinks we should go this route and it's better than my idea, then I'm willing to trust that and go with that. But we've never. I don't think we've ever like truly
had a real conflict.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet, motherfucker. Well, with that, let's end this and then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and do part 2.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.